Okay, greetings, brethren. Thank you for joining us again for another edition of Shepherd's Voice magazine here in the fall season. I wanted to get this out last week, but it just didn't work out. Things got too busy at work, short-staffed, and all these things, and takes up a lot of time. But anyway, thank you for joining us. We get it done eventually, maybe not exactly as soon as we'd like to. So this is going to be part two of not a series, it's just part two of the coming prince, Satan's coming prince, or the man of sin. And we're going to go into a little more of a deeper dive about it today. And I thought that we'll just get started. And so I just want to open up with a few thoughts first, because we're going into some prophetic statements in Daniel and Revelation, and I don't want us to get bogged down and confused in them, so I made some selective scriptures to kind of communicate a point. But when talking and studying prophecy, try not to think about prophecy in a limited sense, in that we're trying to figure out some projected history that is coming before us. I see on Facebook a lot of speculations and people making comments, because the internet has allowed everyone to get a voice and say what they have to do, I think, or what they believe in. And in some respects that works well. In some respects, you got to be able to filter out the stuff that really doesn't make any sense. And trying to figure out times and places and sequence of events is not maybe the end game either. I mean, it's in there, but we need to be careful, especially when we start to speculate. But I also want us to look at the drama, the significance of the drama that is being played out. Especially the drama. The prophecies of the end times are communicated to us as more of even dramas, if you would. Just kind of putting that in the conversation here. And the drama of the forces at play, how people and angels are reacting, and the demonic influences, and how God is in control, and how he releases some control. It's just something for us to think about. And and Jesus' will involved here in the very last days and latter days is kind of hard to fathom. And I get thoughts putting this together, but some of it I can't really prove, but I'm starting to get the hint. And it's just up to you and your own studies and what God is communicating to you, and he'll reveal to you the things that you need to know. And I hope that we're a part of that in some respects. But we're going to start here in Daniel 9, and I have the scriptures here in front of me on my paper, so I'm going to use primarily just read off my notes here from Daniel 9. And Daniel makes a prayer regarding Israel. The time has come for him. He's asking them for, going back to Jeremiah's prophecies that he was familiar with. Just kind of pick it up there, but we'll pick it up here in verse 23. At the beginning of your supplications, only angels come forth, right? Gabriel. At the beginning of your supplications, the command went out, and I have come to tell you, for you are greatly beloved. Therefore, consider the matter and understand the vision. You wouldn't mind some angel coming to remind you of that you are greatly beloved. And here comes the 70 weeks prophecy, which is a significant prophecy in the Old Testament. 70 weeks are determined for your people and your holy city to finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, to make reconciliation for the iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up vision and prophecy and anoint the most holy. So that is the whole summary of what these 70 weeks are about. Verse 25. Now therefore understand that from going forth from the command to restore and build Jerusalem until the Messiah the Prince, there shall be 7 weeks. There shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall even in troublous times. Now, I went and dug up a chart I did to kind of get us to understand what is being presented here. So I'm putting it on the screen. It's just my own abbreviated portion of it. In which case, it's 7 weeks. A week is 7 years, and there's other studies you can go into to describe all this, depending on how much you've looked at this. But in general, it's understood, because the prophetic word has been partially fulfilled here, that the 7 weeks, first 7 weeks, or 7 times 7 is 49 years. In those 49 years, the Jews rebuild the city in troubled times. You can go to the book of Nehemiah, when they were released to, under, I guess you can call it captivity, but they were released to go rebuild Jerusalem, rebuild the walls, if you would. There's some debate about whether it was rebuilding the temple and all these things, but that did come about. But that was the 49 years. And then there's another division here of 7 times 62, 7 times 62, or 434 years, until the point that comes, what comes. And after 62 weeks, Messiah shall be cut off, but not for himself. So here, this is where Jesus Christ has come, and he's lived his life, he's done his ministry, and at the end of the 72 weeks, he is cut off. Basically, he was crucified at the end of those 62 weeks. That's the prophecy. Where after this is kind of a break. And there's a lot to be discussed here, and I've looked it over for a number of years. But essentially, after the Messiah is cut off, the prophecy goes on a pause. There's not another 7 years right after that, because it takes us nowhere. None of the events that are about to be discussed in Daniel, in this chapter, Daniel 9, gets us anywhere. None of these things happened 7 years after. So there is a period of grace. We call it the church age. It's an indeterminate amount of years. It stops the 7 years, 62, the 49, and the 62, and then there's this one more week left. But during this, until that week occurs, we're in an indeterminate amount of time of what God has allowed for let's call it the church age. So no one can predict when Christ is coming back in terms of years. You can't predict it. It's kind of just left floating out as a variable that no one can know. I mean, there's some years ago they've worked it out that Christ will return on such and such a date. It's absolutely impossible to do this because of the 7-year prophecy, the way it's been laid out. But let's continue. Let's continue here. Let's continue. And we may revisit this graph again in just a minute. But we do have that last 7 years. And I want to read a little bit about that. So we have this break in history. At this point, the Messiah, the Prince, is given all authority on heaven and earth, as I talked about last part 1, during this period in this church age. In Matthew 28:18, and Jesus came and spoke to them, saying, all authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. All authority has come during this whole period of time. So since that time of Christ's death, this church age, as I'm calling it, we have an age really of grace. This is an age of grace. I want us to think about that. Because when we look at history and see wars and horrible weather and earthquakes and things like that, sometimes we see good things and catastrophe. We may be in awe of it, like, oh my gosh. But Christ is still in charge. And it's an age of grace. And it may not sound that way given all the wars and troubles that have been happening since Christ's death. And we see the trouble today that is going on. And those were, and those who fully bought into the Anglo-Israelism narrative, bought into that, or keep posting things about this economic collapse of America and all these things. But with all that, and the weather and the earthquakes and the catastrophes, and that has all been occurred, God is not in these things. He is not in these things. He is not involved in this directly. And this will maybe make more sense as we progress. Christ tells us in Matthew 24, you'll hear about these things, but the prince to come still has not risen yet. He hasn't come on the scene. In Matthew 24, as you can read there in first early verses, it says, take heed that no one deceives you. Take heed, no one deceives you, making a big deal about signs that are irrelevant. Because when you read through that scripture, for many will come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and will deceive many. And continuing it on the discussion that no one deceive you, and you will hear of wars and rumors of wars, you'll have commentary on them, all this stuff. They'll say, this is a sign, see that you are not troubled. Don't be troubled by all the speculations and things, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. So God is not in them. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in various places. All these things are the beginning of sorrows. I like to listen to atheists online, and they have their debates with some of the more prominent Christian personalities that are out there, and they've been going on for a long time. I like to listen to atheists and listen to their arguments and how they try to trip up the preacher, depending on what the topic is, and I kind of use that to kind of sharpen myself, but I do learn from them. But the whole thing is just based on a false narrative that I want to kind of present here the best I can. And that narrative seems to develop over what's call it a silent heaven. In this time of grace. In this time of grace, heaven seems silent. This narrative, in my summation, is that the very silence from heaven over the past hundreds of years, which is God's gracious period from the gospel to go out to the ends of the world, is appealed to by these atheists as proof that God is but a myth. See, nothing's happening. I think the gospel speak to that. See, things have been going just all along, just like since the beginning. So we project forward based on everything that we can talk about for the last hundreds of years. So they're good at claiming God is a myth. And they could bring up all kinds of case studies that he's a myth. So it's like the myth is to be blamed. It's really bizarre when you try to figure out what is motivating these atheists and what's motivating agnostics and others. It's rather interesting. I mean, there's one gentleman, Christopher Hitchens, who died in 2011. He was a well-known atheist. He did a book called God is Not Great, How Religion Poisons Everything. And he talks a lot about in his debates about religion and politics, etc. And what most atheists do, and what he seems to be doing, is that they judge God based on religion, what religion has done to the world, how religion poisons everything. And so this period of grace and all the atrocities of the past is the basis of the groundwork of his judgment, what religion has done, what his wars have done, and all these historical points that he can make. And, it's fine. I don't sit there. I don't plan to make any debates with people like him. So because of this period of grace, we're trying to argue for God in this period of grace. So it's almost like God can't win. If I'm not always involved, you still won't believe in me. And if I stay away and allow this period of this age of grace to occur, where's your God? The beast power, as he's called, the beast power, and the one who heads it, this coming prince will command homage of all the world that rejects this grace, in my thinking. So if we go to verse 26, we're going to go back there. Where do we read up to? I just have my Bible handy. And after 62 weeks, the Messiah shall be cut off, but not for himself. And then it says, and the people of the prince who is to come. And let's not, what is interesting in prophecy, and there's a few other places in prophecy where within one verse, there's hundreds of years between lines. This is not unusual. We see it in Isaiah. We see it in other places that my study of prophecies. And so when we read prophecy, we got to make sure we don't try to understand step by step by step. We need to kind of see it being played out as a drama and a history. So, what's happening here? And this is where the title of this message comes from. And the people of the prince who is to come. And the people of the prince who is to come. This word prince here is the same as Messiah the prince, except that the word Messiah is not used here. But the people of the prince who is to come. Right? Shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. So, in the beginning of this prophecy, it says here, 70 weeks are determined for your people and for your holy city. So Jerusalem is very much in view. And when we see this here, destroy the city and the sanctuary, there's a high probability in my mind that a temple is going to be built. Doesn't seem like it's happening, but I'm not worried about it. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, but the prophecies will be fulfilled somehow. The end of it shall be with a flood. Until the end of the war, desolations are determined. And then there's some detail that's given to this. Now, if you have a King James version, verse 27 says, then he shall confirm. I kind of question that word then, and it turns out it's really not there. It's like it's not a sequence of events. There's just more detail given here as to what's happened here when the people of the prince, those who follow him, shall destroy the sanctuary. So we'll keep reading. He shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. But in the middle of the week he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering. And on the wing of abominations shall be one who makes desolate. So this is another future abomination of desolation. Even until the consummation, which is determined, is poured out on the desolate. I can make a few comments on that, a little more detail, but that's for another time. So in the end, it'll be a disaster. But he will have his reign. So in that chart earlier that I showed, and if I may pop it up here again, this is what he's taught. This is the last, in the middle of the week. This is the last week, the 70th week of the 7-week prophecy that is now started up. This is when the culmination of this prophecy and history as we know it up to the millennium is going to come to an end. This is it. And so when the clock, it hasn't been ticking, but the clock is starting to tick again when this last 7 years begins. All right. But during this, it'll end in disaster, but he will have his reign, his prince to come. And we have the assurance of Christ's victory. But it's that process to victory during this part of time is really not for the faint of heart or those who must endure through this by their faith. And that's the thing that we need to focus in on more often. But this subject of this presentation is to talk about this future character, and that we don't underestimate what might happen is really the point I'm trying to make. And I want us to consider this time, or this period of grace that we're in today. So in Revelation 13:5, let's just jump ahead there, and it picks it up here in the middle of the week. So, but in the middle of the week you shall bring an end of sacrifice and offerings. So Revelation 13:5, in the middle of the week here, and he was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and he was given authority to continue for 42 months. That's the 3.5 years. Then he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and all those who dwell in heaven. It was granted to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. Now here's where I want to make an emphasis. There's an emphasis of, hopefully I can bring this across. And it says, and authority was given him over every tribe, tongue, and nation. Does that remind us of something? Here is a point where Jesus Christ, in some capacity, releases his authority. And Satan recaptures it with this man. The beast and Satan claim the authority that Jesus Christ was going to release in those last days. Whether it's in the last 7 years, in the last 3.5 years, I would imagine it's at least the last 3.5 years. But we see this thing building up and is gaining authority over a period of 7 years. Because recall what Paul told the Thessalonians, for the mystery of lawlessness is already at work. Only he who now restrains it will do so, and he's taken out of the way. And it's very funny words, but the way he presented it. But again, it's that restraining influence right now that is going on. This age of grace. We have this age of grace because of the restraining influence of our God in heaven. Let me put it that way. So we see this coming together. I think we see something coming together. And I want to jump around to a few prophecies, and I can't go into all of them and talk about them, and there's things that I don't quite fully grasp myself, but it comes together over a period of time. But the point I want to make here at this juncture is this age of grace will become to an end. And the Antichrist and his powers that'll be given to him will be taking over the things that matter going on the earth. Daniel 7, chapter 7, there are these beasts. And I'm just going to pick it up here on the fourth beast, because there was 3 previous ones. And this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong. It had huge iron teeth, and was devouring, breaking in pieces, and trampling the residue with its feet. It was different from the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I was considering the horns, and there was another horn, a little one, coming up among them, before whom 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots. And there in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking pompous words. So the eyes were eyes like the eyes of a man. So this is a man with extreme intelligence. That's what it means, eyes of the man. Because that's what it means by this language. Eyes of a man. Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be a fourth kingdom on earth. And this is jumping ahead here, giving an interpretation in Daniel, verse 23 of, I believe, the same chapter. Let me make sure if I don't jump ahead. And then I just see some other scriptures that I think were relevant, but I can't really go through all of them. I know there's some I deliberately left out. But here in Daniel 7, verse 23, just make sure. The fourth beast shall be a fourth kingdom on earth, which shall be different from all other kingdoms. There's something different about it, and shall devour the whole earth, trample it and break it in many pieces. And the reason why, one of the primary reasons I bring this up, there's those who have this idea that this final 10 kingdom but 3 are rooted out. So he's basically the 11th king, if you want that, put it that way. Devour the whole earth. And earth in Hebrew is difficult, but so you have to take it in context. But it's different in the fact that it devours the whole earth, not a region like Europe and the Middle East. This takes in North America, takes in everything. And then you can look at that from Babylon to America, that short book I put together. The 10 horns are 10 kings who shall rise from this kingdom, and another shall arise after them. This is kind of, this fourth beast was Roman Empire, but it's coming back. And that's another discussion. But a version of Roman Empire that's never left. It's called the Roman Earth. Who shall arise from this kingdom? Another shall arise after them, and he shall be different from the first ones, and shall subdue 3 kings. He shall speak pompous words against the Most High, shall persecute the saints of the Most High, and shall intend to change times and law. And the saints shall be given into his hand for time and a half time. And that's one of those things that we really can't explain, but somehow this is what God is doing. Jesus Christ has released this end of this time of grace, and just all heck breaks loose. In Revelation 12:3, we see a little more detail here given about what this angel is interpreting. In Revelation 12:3, and another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great fiery red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 diadems on his heads. And then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And on his horns were 10 crowns, and on his heads blasphemous name. You see, both the dragon and the beast are seen with royal diadems. Now, they're like the pretenders of Christ's royalty. They'll rule, actually. This particularly was focused on this prince to come with splendor and terror. Now, that's okay, and that was Revelation 13:1, as I say here. Now, the beast which I saw was like a leopard, and his feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority. So those previous beasts that are described in Daniel, that of coming out, at least kind of leopard, a bit of a bear, etc., lion, it seems like it's all culminating in this one location. And the dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority. This coming prince himself, in the full development of his power, becomes heir to all the great world powers that preceded him. He's the 8th, but part of the 7. The 7th power is the resurrected Roman Empire, as we'll call it that. But different in the sense, as I said, it's developed and gone out through all the world. So he's gotten all this authority of nations, peoples, and tongues. It's great. Prince. With great authority and great intelligence. It transcends anything that we've seen in humans before. In Revelation 13, I think here in verse 8, all who dwell on the earth will worship him, whose names have not been written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. So this is quite a drama that is being played out. A man with transcendent greatness, and secured undisputed preeminence, never before. It's the culmination of all these empires. And this dragon, the devil of old, as it says, will single him out to administer his awful power on earth for a period of time, a short period of time. He'll be energized by Satan and all the power and signs and lying wonders. Incredible. Revelation 12, verse 12, therefore heavens, it says here, therefore rejoice, because the devil was cast out. When the devil was cast out, I don't have this particular scripture here mentioned, but that's okay. When he was cast out, it says here in Revelation 12, verse 12, therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, for the devil has come down to you, having great wrath, because he knows that his time is short. The reality is here, the time of grace is gone. And the reality is that what's being described here are events so appalling that it just unleashed forces that will never, we have not seen before. And the people will be here, and whatever else is going on, be set out to accomplish them. You know, during this age of grace, it is though Satan's power on earth has been so restrained that mankind forgets his very existence. And I think he's he would try to use that to his advantage when you think about the totality of it. Because we think it's bad in the sense of what we see, wars and rumors of wars and angry people and fighting and bad weather and earthquakes, etc. But that's nothing really that we've ever experienced in terms of what is coming. And so I think God and Jesus Christ has sufficiently equipped us to know what is coming and to kind of recognize these things. And some of these things are in disguise in a sense, because who could imagine worshiping a man? But this man is something else. I don't mean to pump him up or anything, but he is called the Prince to come, and he'll have so much rulership over the earth. And I think maybe I can read here a little bit more, a few more verses here in chapter 8 of Daniel. Let's see here. Through his, verse 25, through his cunning and he shall cause deceit to prosper under his rule, and he shall exalt himself in his heart, and he shall destroy many in their prosperity. He shall even rise against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without human means. So the voice of prophecy is clear to us. The hour is coming. The hour is coming. And so is the man. So, brethren, I think I'll just end the discussion here on this subject. I might just study it myself some more, but I hope it gives you some food for thought, thinking about these things. So, brethren, thank you for joining us here on Shepherd's Voice magazine. Always share comments, click a like or dislike, share it with a friend, share it with an enemy. May God bless all of you. Till next time, we see you here again on Shepherd's Voice magazine. Take care.